Parit, not far from Batu Gajah, in turn not far from Ipoh, the state capital. The other had a more peripatetic existence, moving from a series of remote jungle towns, Tumpat to Mangan, before settling in Kuala Krai, in the heart of the Islamic state of Kelantan, on the remote northeastern coast of Malaysia. One was Hokkien, a Minanhua speaker from Fujian province, the other from Hainan Island, the southernmost territory of China, almost halfway down the coast of Vietnam, and a mere few days by boat across the South China Sea to Malaysia. A quick aside, Hokkien, Hainanese, and to these add Cantonese, Hakka, Teochew, the differing regional roots of Chinese immigrants in Southeast Asia. Keep them in mind, they're important to this story. Both my grandfathers had, at some point in the 1920s, made the hazardous boat trip from southern China to the Malay Peninsula. They were mere teenagers when they made the voyage, fleeing a China ravaged by famine and fragmenting into civil war. I doubt their families would have known much about China's political confusion during the warlord era. They might have known that the Qing dynasty had recently come to an end, that they no longer had an emperor, but they would not have understood what it meant to live in the fresh ruins of 1,000 years of imperial rule, would not have understood the intricacies of the increasingly bitter conflict between Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist Kuomintang and the swelling power of the Communist Party. They did not know that they were living in momentous times, an era to end all eras, the beginning of a novel whose middle chapters we are only just approaching today. Theirs was a time that would set China on a course to dominate the world's imagination 100 years later. But they would never see their country become the world's factory, the world's largest consumer of luxury goods, the world's second largest economy, respectful only of the might of the United States. In those few years, contemplating adulthood, they wanted only to escape crushing poverty. And in those times, the routes to salvation led, almost inevitably, to the warm, fertile lands that lay spread out across a vast archipelago south of China, where the Chinese emperors had established a centuries-old network of trading routes and an ancient relationship based on vassal and tributary states, with the port of Singapore and Malacca at its epicenter. This was a place of promise, known to the Chinese as Nanyang, the Southern Oceans. Sometimes, when I arrive in New York or Shanghai, old harbor cities that have drawn generations of immigrants, I find myself reimagining my grandfather's arrival at the docks in Singapore, an unknown place whose sights and sounds must have been inexplicably comforting nonetheless. The temperature, hot and humid, exactly the same as the long summers of their homelands. There will be no cool season here, no brief respite from the heat and the rain, but they do not know this yet. The landscape, broad-leafed evergreen trees and waterways, the proximity of the sea. Again, much like home. The smell of wet earth and rotting vegetation, of food, of possibility. But above all, it is the people who make them feel that they can live here. This is a British colony, but it is a city of free trade. Then, as now, foreigners arrive easily, they find work easily, they stay. Built on 80 years of Chinese immigration since the establishment of British administration and the development of natural resources by the colonial government, Singapore is full of Chinese, labourers, dockside coolies, descendants of indentured workers in Malayan tin mines and plantations, but also merchants and tradesmen, artists, writers. There are Chinese newspapers, Chinese shops with Chinese signs painted in elegant traditional characters, Chinese schools, even a Chinese bank, the overseas Chinese